The Galactic Assembly had kept peace for 3,000 years. Hundreds of species lived together under one great government. They traded with each other. They shared technology. They explored the stars as friends. But there was one rule that every species knew, one law that nobody was allowed to break. Never wake the Doomworlders. Long ago, when the Assembly first began mapping the galaxy, their scouts found a small yellow star with 8 planets spinning around it. The third planet caught their attention. It was blue and green and beautiful from far away. But when they looked closer, they found something terrifying. The planet was trying to kill everything on it. Massive waves of water crashed against the land. Mountains exploded with fire and melted rock. The ground itself would shake and split open without warning. Storms the size of small moons tore across the surface. The air was filled with a gas that would burn the lungs of most species. Radiation from the yellow star poured down constantly. The Assembly scientists called it a Category 9 death world, the most dangerous classification possible. They expected to find nothing but rocks and maybe some simple bacteria. Instead, they found life everywhere. Not just simple life, complex life, predators with sharp teeth, plants that produced poison, insects that numbered in the trillions. Every living thing on this world was fighting to survive. Every creature was either a killer or food for killers. The entire planet was one giant battle for survival. And at the top of this nightmare world stood the humans. They were soft creatures, no claws, no thick skin, no natural weapons at all. By all logic, they should have died out millions of years ago, but they did not die. They adapted. They learned. They built tools to do what their bodies could not. They survived ice ages that froze half their world. They survived plagues that killed billions of them. They survived wars where they used weapons that could crack the planet itself. When the Assembly first made contact with humans, they watched in horror. These creatures could survive in almost any environment. Their bodies could heal from wounds that would kill other species. They ate plants and animals that were toxic to everyone else. They actually enjoyed their death world. They called it beautiful. They called it home. The Assembly made a decision. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too strong. If they ever spread across the galaxy, they might become impossible to stop. So the Assembly voted and the decision was final. Earth was removed from every star map. The Sol system was surrounded by warning beacons. Any ship that approached would be turned away. Any species that made contact with humans would face severe punishment. The humans were locked inside their own solar system like dangerous animals in a cage. For 200 years, the galaxy forgot about the Doomworlders. Life continued peacefully. Trade flourished. New worlds were discovered. The memory of those terrifying creatures from the blue planet faded into old stories that parents told children to scare them. Then the Veth came. Nobody knew where the Veth Collective came from. They appeared at the edge of known space without warning. Millions of ships, each one grown from living flesh and bone. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked. The Veth were a hive mind, one giant consciousness controlling billions of bodies. They had only one purpose, and that purpose was to consume. Every world they touched was stripped bare. Every species they found was devoured or destroyed. They spread across the galaxy like a disease, and nothing could stop them. Admiral Una of the Lauren Republic was the first to face them in real battle. The Lauren were a peaceful species. They had no military, only a small defense fleet meant to protect trade ships from pirates. Una had never seen real war. Her people had not fought anyone in over 1,000 years. She learned very quickly. The Veth swarm fell upon her fleet like hungry animals. Their bioships crashed into her vessels, tearing through metal with claws and acid. Her weapons barely scratched their living hulls. Her shields failed in minutes. One by one, her ships exploded or were torn apart. Una stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Serenity's Hope, and watched her people die. Fires burned everywhere. Emergency alarms screamed. Bodies of her crew floated past the viewports, frozen in the vacuum of space. The ship was breaking apart around her. She had sent distress calls to every nearby system. No one answered. The assembly fleet was too far away. By the time help arrived, there would be nothing left but debris and corpses. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about her home world, her family, the gardens where she used to play as a child. All of it would be consumed by the Veth. All of it would disappear forever. Then she remembered something. A story from ancient records. A frequency that had not been used in 2 centuries. A signal that reached beyond the quarantine barrier around a small yellow star. The Doomworlders. Yuna walked through the burning bridge to an old communication console. Dust covered its surface. No one had touched it in generations. With shaking hands, she activated the emergency channel. She did not know if anyone would hear. She did not know if the humans even still existed. But she had no other choice. She spoke into the console, her voice breaking with fear and desperation. She gave coordinates. She described the enemy. She begged for help from creatures that her ancestors had locked away and forgotten. The message was simple, just 3 letters that carried the weight of an entire galaxy. SOS. Yuna sent the signal and collapsed into her command chair. The Veth were cutting through the final bulkheads. She could hear their claws scraping against metal, getting closer. She had maybe minutes left to live. She did not know if her message had reached anyone. She did not know if the Doomworlders would answer. She did not even know if they would care about a galaxy that had abandoned them. But somewhere across the stars, in a solar system surrounded by warning beacons, an ancient receiver crackled to life. A light that had been dark for 200 years began to blink. And on a planet called Earth, someone was listening. Fleet Commander Tiho was having a quiet morning. He sat in his office at United Earth Command, reading reports about patrol routes and supply shipments. Outside his window, the city of New Seoul stretched toward the horizon, its tall buildings shining in the morning sun. It was a peaceful day, nothing special. Then the alarm went off. Tiho looked up from his desk. The sound was strange. It was not the normal alert for incoming ships or emergency drills. This sound was different, older. He had only heard it once before during his training when instructors played ancient recordings for new officers. It was the first contact alarm, the signal that meant someone from outside the solar system was trying to reach Earth. Tiho ran to the communications center. Officers were already gathered around an old console that sat in the corner of the room. Dust covered its surface. Cobwebs hung from its wires. Nobody had touched this machine in 200 years. But now it was alive. Lights blinked rapidly. Static filled the speakers. And through the noise, a voice emerged. An alien voice speaking in a language that Earth's computers quickly translated. The message was desperate, screaming, crying, coordinates for a location far across the galaxy, descriptions of a terrible enemy that could not be stopped, and at the end just 3 letters repeated over and over. SOS, SOS, SOS. Tiho listened to the entire message twice. When it ended, the room was silent. Every officer stared at him, waiting for orders, waiting to know what this meant. Captain Hana was the first to speak. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a quick mind. She had served under Tiho for 10 years and knew him better than most. "Commander," she said carefully, "that signal came from Lauren Space. They are members of the Galactic Assembly, the same assembly that locked us in this system 2 centuries ago." Tiho nodded slowly. "I know." "They abandoned us," Lieutenant Minyu added. He was younger than Hana with fire in his voice. "They treated us like monsters. They erased our planet from their maps. Now they want our help." "It seems that way," Tiho replied. Commander Sara stepped forward. She was in charge of communications and intelligence. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched tight. "The threat they describe is serious," she said. "I cross-referenced their coordinates with old star charts. The Veth Collective has already destroyed dozens of systems. They are spreading fast. If nobody stops them, they will consume the entire galaxy." "Good," Minyu said bitterly. "Let them burn. Let them learn what it feels like to be helpless and alone." Tiho understood his anger. Every human did. For 200 years, Earth had been isolated, forgotten. They had watched the stars and dreamed of exploration, but invisible walls kept them trapped. Other species traveled freely across the galaxy while humans were treated like dangerous animals. The resentment ran deep. Many humans had grown up hating the assembly, hating the aliens who had judged them without knowing them. The idea of helping those same aliens now seemed like a cruel joke. But Tiho had spent his whole life studying Earth's history. He knew what humans were capable of: the good and the bad, the wars and the peace, the cruelty and the kindness. Humans had done terrible things to each other throughout history, but they had also risked their lives to save strangers. They had crossed oceans to help people they had never met. They had rushed into burning buildings and sinking ships because someone needed help. That was the truth about humans. They fought harder than anyone, but they also cared deeper than anyone. Tiho looked at his officers. These were good people, angry people but good ones. He needed to remind them of who they really were. 200 years ago, he said quietly, the galaxy looked at us and saw monsters. They were afraid of what we might do. Maybe they were right to be afraid. We have done terrible things to each other. We have weapons that could crack planets. We have a history written in blood. He paused and looked out the window at the city below. Children were playing in a park. Couples walked hand in hand along the streets. Life continued, beautiful and fragile. "But that is not all we are," Tiho continued. "We are also the species that runs toward danger instead of away from it. We are the species that cannot ignore a cry for help. Someone out there is dying. Someone is afraid and alone and asking us to save them. What kind of people would we be if we turned away?" The room was silent. Minyu looked at the floor, his anger fatting. Hana's eyes softened. Sora nodded slowly. "If we go out there," Hana said, "we show the galaxy exactly what we are. Doomworlders, yes, but also protectors, rescuers, friends." Tiho smiled slightly. "Exactly." He walked to the main console and activated the fleet registry. A holographic display filled the room with glowing light. Thousands of ships appeared, floating in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts the size of mountains. Carriers loaded with fighter craft. Destroyers bristling with weapons. 200 years of building, preparing, waiting. The United Earth Defense Force had been created to protect humanity from any future threats. Every ship was armed with the deadliest weapons humans could design. Every crew member was trained to survive impossible conditions. They had never been tested in real combat, until now. "Call all fleet commanders," Tiho ordered. "Full assembly in 1 hour. We are going to war." Sora opened a channel to every ship in the solar system. Her voice was calm and steady as she spoke. "All vessels, this is United Earth Command. We have received a distress signal from beyond our borders. The galaxy that abandoned us is under attack. They are dying, and they have asked for our help." She paused and looked at Tiho. He gave her a small nod. "We are going to answer that call," Sora continued. "Not for revenge, not for recognition, because that is who we are. Because when someone screams for help, humans do not look away. All ships prepare for departure. Destination is Lauren space. We move in 3 hours." Across Earth and its colonies, engines began to warm up. Weapons systems came online. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. The sleeping giant was waking up, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Tiho watched his fleet prepare through the command center's main screen. Soon, the assembly would see what Doomworlders really looked like. Soon, the Veth Collective would learn why Earth was classified as a death world. Soon, the galaxy would remember why they had been so afraid. And this time, they would learn that their fear had been completely justified. Admiral Una had accepted death. There was nothing left to fight for. Her ship was broken. Her crew was gone. The Veth swarm surrounded her on every side, and she could hear them cutting through the final walls. Soon they would reach the bridge. Soon it would all be over. She sat in her command chair and stared at the viewport. The stars were hidden behind millions of Veth bioships. Their ugly forms blocked out all light. They looked like giant insects made of bone and dark flesh, with claws that could tear through any metal. Una thought about her message, the desperate signal she had sent to the Doomworlders. It was a foolish hope. Even if the humans had received it, they had no reason to help. The Assembly had treated them like prisoners for 2 centuries. Why would they save the very species that had abandoned them? She closed her eyes and waited for the end. Then something strange happened. The Veth ships stopped moving, all of them at exactly the same moment. Their constant screaming through the communication channels went silent. For one beautiful second, the universe was quiet. Una opened her eyes. In front of her, space itself was tearing open. It was like watching fabric rip apart. A line of pure white light appeared in the darkness, growing wider and wider. Behind that light, Una could see something moving. Shapes, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Ships. They came through the tier in reality like warriors marching to battle. But these were not like any ships Una had ever seen. They were not graceful or elegant. They had no smooth curves or beautiful designs. These ships were brutal, angular, covered in weapons that pointed in every direction. They looked like they were built for one purpose only: killing. The lead ship was massive. It was kilometers long, bigger than some moons. Its hull was dark gray metal, scarred from countless battles. Weapons bristled from every surface like thorns on a deadly plant. On its side, painted in white letters, was a single word: Earth. Una could not breathe. They had come. The Doomworlders had actually come. A transmission cut through all channels. Every speaker on every remaining ship carried the same voice. It was calm, confident, terrifying. "This is Fleet Commander Tiho of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress signal. Veth Collective, you have attacked species under our protection. You have exactly 1 chance to turn around and leave this space. If you refuse, we will introduce you to human hospitality." The Veth responded immediately. They did not understand diplomacy. They did not know how to negotiate. They only knew how to attack. 10,000 bioships broke formation and rushed toward the human fleet. They screamed across the void like a wave of hungry monsters, their claws open wide to tear and destroy. Captain Hana watched them come on her tactical display. She felt no fear, only excitement. "Commander," she reported, "enemy vessels incoming. Estimated time to contact 2 minutes." Tiho nodded calmly. "All ships weapons free. Show them what we can do." The human fleet opened fire. It was not a battle, it was a slaughter. Human weapons were not designed for elegance. They were designed by a species that had spent millions of years fighting for survival. Railguns fired metal slugs at speeds that seemed impossible. Each impact released more energy than a nuclear bomb. Missiles flew in swarms, their warheads burning as hot as the surface of stars. The Veth bioships exploded by the hundreds, then by the thousands. Their living hulls, which had resisted every weapon the galaxy could throw at them, shattered like glass under the human assault. Chunks of bone and dark flesh scattered across space, spinning away into the void. Lieutenant Minu commanded a destroyer called the Iron Wolf. He watched his targeting screen fill with Veth ships and grinned. "They just keep coming," he said to his crew. "Fine by me, more targets." The Iron Wolf's main guns fired again and again. Each shot punched through multiple bioships, leaving trails of destruction through the swarm. Around him, other human vessels did the same. The darkness of space lit up with explosions as the Veth died in waves. Admiral Yuna watched from her broken bridge. Her mind could not process what she was seeing. The Veth Collective had destroyed 17 civilizations across 4 galaxies. They had consumed trillions of lives. No one had ever stopped them. And now humans were tearing through them like they were nothing. The battle lasted exactly 3 minutes. When it was over, 10,000 Veth bioships had been reduced to clouds of floating debris. Not a single human vessel had been scratched. Silence filled the void. Then Tiho's voice came through the communication channel again. "Admiral Yuna of the Lauren Republic, this is Fleet Commander Tiho. Are you still alive?" Yuna found her voice somehow. Her words came out as a whisper. Yes, I am here." "Good, stay where you are. We are sending rescue teams to your ship. Can you tell me the current status of the Veth threat?" Yuna looked at her broken displays. Most of them were dead, but a few still showed sensor data. They are everywhere," she managed to say. "Millions of ships. They are attacking the entire galaxy. World after world is falling." There was a pause. Then Tiho spoke again, and his voice carried something that made Yuna shiver. "Millions, understood. That is a lot of targets." He did not sound worried. He did not sound afraid. He sounded almost pleased. Commander Sora's voice joined the channel. "Admiral, we have more ships coming. A lot more. The full fleet is on its way." Yuna looked through her viewport at the human vessels. There were hundreds of them, each one loaded with enough weapons to destroy a city. And they were saying more were coming. "How many ships do you have?" she asked weakly. Tiho answered with what Yuna would later recognize as typical human understatement. "Enough." Rescue teams arrived at the Serenity's Hope within minutes. Human soldiers in heavy armor cut through the wreckage to reach survivors. They moved with practiced efficiency, carrying the wounded to safety, sealing hull breaches, stabilizing dying systems. A young human medic found Yuna still sitting in her command chair. He checked her vitals and smiled gently. "You are safe now, Admiral. The Doomworlders are here." Yuna looked into his eyes. They were warm and kind, not the eyes of a monster at all. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for coming." The medic shrugged, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Someone needed help. That is what we do." Outside, more tiers opened in space. More human ships poured through. Carriers and battleships and dreadnoughts forming into formations that spread across the stars. The full might of the United Earth Defense Force had arrived. And somewhere in the darkness, the Veth Collective felt something it had never felt before. Fear. The war spread across the galaxy like fire. The Veth Collective controlled thousands of star systems. Their bioships numbered in the billions. Their ground forces were endless waves of screaming monsters that feared nothing and felt no pain. But now they faced humans. And humans had been preparing for war since they first crawled out of the caves on their death world. Commander Sora coordinated battles across hundreds of systems from the flagship Victory's Edge. Her screens showed constant streams of data, fleet movements, enemy positions, casualty reports, supply lines. She managed it all with calm precision, directing the war like a master playing a complex game. "Third Fleet has engaged the Veth near the Corin system," she reported. "Enemy numbers are approximately 2 million vessels." Tiho nodded. "Who is leading Third Fleet?" "Captain Bora." "She will handle it. What about the ground assault on Veth Prime?" Sora pulled up new data. "In progress. Commander G1 is leading the infiltration teams. Surface combat is being handled by Minyu's regiment." On the surface of Veth Prime, Lieutenant Minyu discovered why humans were called Doomworlders. The hive world was a nightmare. Organic towers rose from lakes of acid. The air was toxic with spores that would kill most species in minutes. The ground pulsed like living flesh beneath their boots. And everywhere, Veth warriors swarmed like angry insects. Minyu loved every second of it. "Hold the line," he shouted to his soldiers. "They want this pass, they have to come through us first." His regiment had been ordered to hold a mountain pass, while other teams completed their missions deeper in the hive. Military strategy said they needed at least 10,000 soldiers to hold against the Veth swarm. Minyu had 300. Nobody told the humans they were supposed to lose. The Veth attacked in waves. Thousands of warriors, each one taller than a man, with claws that could cut through tank armor. They screamed and charged, their hive mind driving them forward without fear. Minyu met them with fire. Human weapons roared, railguns tore through Veth bodies, grenades exploded in the middle of swarms. Soldiers fought with rifles, then with pistols, then with knives when ammunition ran low. When the knives broke, they used their fists. A Veth warrior slashed Minyu across the chest. Blood soaked his uniform. Any other species would have fallen. Minyu grabbed the creature's head and twisted until it cracked. "Is that all you have?" he screamed at the swarm. "Come on, we are just getting started." The battle lasted 6 days. 6 days of constant fighting. No sleep, no rest, just wave after wave of enemies crashing against a wall of human stubbornness. Soldiers collapsed from exhaustion and forced themselves back up. The wounded kept shooting with their remaining hands. The dying whispered jokes to make their friends laugh. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Minyu still standing at the front of his line. His armor was shattered. His body was covered in wounds that should have killed him 3 times over. He was standing on a pile of dead Veth warriors, using a broken rifle as a club. "Took you long enough," he said with a bloody grin. "We were just getting started." The reinforcement commander stared at him in disbelief. "Lieutenant, you held this pass for 6 days against 20,000 enemies, with 300 soldiers." Minyu shrugged. "We had good ground." Stories like this spread across the galaxy. The Veth had never encountered anything like humans. They could not understand creatures who refused to die, who laughed while bleeding, who fought harder the more hopeless things became. But the true heart of the war was happening deeper in the hive. Sergeant G1 led her infiltration team through tunnels carved from living flesh. They moved in silence, avoiding patrols, slipping past defenses. Their target was the center of the hive world, where the Queen Mother lived. The Queen Mother was the brain of the Veth collective, one consciousness controlling billions of bodies across thousands of worlds. Without her, the swarm would lose its coordination. The war would end. G1's team had the hardest job in the galaxy, and she had volunteered for it without hesitation. "Movement ahead," whispered her second-in-command, a soldier named Yangjin. "Looks like guard posts, heavy ones." G1 studied the layout through her scanner. The tunnels ahead were crawling with Veth warriors. Sneaking past was impossible. "We go through," she decided. "Fast and quiet, knives only." Her team moved like shadows. Veth guards fell silently, their throats cut before they could scream. Bodies were hidden in dark corners. Alarms went untriggered. The humans passed through the hive like ghosts. After 3 days of crawling through the nightmarish tunnels, they reached the Queen Mother's chamber. G1 had seen many terrible things in her life. She had survived earthquakes, volcanoes, and wars, but the Queen Mother made her pause. The creature was the size of a skyscraper. Its body pulsed with sickly light, connected to millions of tubes that spread through the entire planet. Smaller Veth crawled over its surface like insects on a corpse. The air was thick with psychic energy that pressed against G1's mind. The Queen Mother sensed them. Massive eyes turned toward the tiny humans. A voice echoed in their heads, cold and ancient. "We have CONSUMED17 CIVILIZETONS. We have DVORDGALAXIS. You are nothing. You are food. You are already dead." G1 smiled. She reached for the device on her back. an antimatter charge with enough power to vaporize a mountain. She had always known this mission was one way. She had made peace with that before leaving Earth. "You picked the wrong galaxy," she said simply. The Queen Mother realized what was happening a second too late. Massive claws swept toward the tiny human, but G1 had already pressed the button. Light filled the chamber. Across 1,000 worlds, the Veth swarm suddenly stopped. Warriors froze mid-strike. Bioships drifted off course. The connection that linked them all had been severed. The Queen Mother was dead, and without her, the collective was nothing but a billion mindless animals. On the Victory's edge, Commander Sora watched her screens change. Red indicators flickered to green across the entire galaxy. "The hive mind is down," she reported, her voice shaking slightly. "The Veth are no longer coordinated. They are retreating everywhere." Fleet Commander Tiho closed his eyes. G1. Sora checked the telemetry from the infiltration team. There was nothing. No life signs, no signals, just silence from where the Queen Mother had been. "She is gone, Commander, along with the rest of her team." Tiho stood at the window for a long moment. Stars burned in the distance. Somewhere out there, a brave woman had given everything so that others could live. "Noted in the record," he said quietly. "Sergeant G1 and her team, they won the war." The final battles were cleanup. Without the Queen Mother's guidance, the Veth fell into chaos. Human fleets hunted down the remaining swarms. Within weeks, the threat that had terrified the galaxy for years was gone. The war was over, the galaxy was free. And in the stories that would be told for generations, the name of Sergeant G1 would always be remembered as the human who killed a god. The war was over, but the galaxy held its breath. Humans had saved them all. They had crushed an enemy that no one else could stop. They had proven that the terror of the Doomworlders was absolutely justified. Now everyone waited to see what humans would do next. Would they demand tribute? Would they take revenge for 2 centuries of isolation? Would they conquer the very civilizations they had rescued? Every species in the assembly feared the answer. Admiral Yuna stood in the docking bay of the Victory's Edge, waiting for Fleet Commander Tiho. She had spent weeks among humans now. She had watched them fight with terrifying skill, but she had also watched them help wounded aliens without asking anything in return. She had seen them laugh and cry and share food with strangers. She did not know what to think anymore. Tiho arrived with Commander Sora and Captain Hana beside him. Lieutenant Minyu walked behind them, still covered in bandages from the battle on Veth Prime. They looked tired but proud. "Admiral," Tiho greeted her, "the Assembly has called a meeting. They want to discuss the future." Yuna nodded carefully. "Yes, they are worried about what you might demand." Tiho raised an eyebrow. "Demand?" "You saved us," Yuna said. "You lost soldiers. That woman, Sergeant G1, she gave her life for species that had abandoned you. The Assembly believes you will want something in return." Tiho was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to a window that looked out at the stars. Damaged ships from dozens of species floated nearby, all of them being repaired by human engineering teams. "Admiral," he said slowly, "do you know why we really came?" Yuna shook her head. "When we received your message, many of my people wanted to refuse. 200 years is a long time to be alone." The anger ran deep. Some wanted to let the galaxy burn and enjoy the show from a safe distance. Yuna's heart sank. She had feared this. "But that is not who we are," Tiho continued. "Humans have a complicated history. We have done terrible things to each other. Wars, slavery, cruelty that would shock you. But through all of it, we never lost one simple truth." He turned to face her. "When someone is hurting, you help them. When someone is in danger, you protect them. It does not matter if they are friends or strangers. It does not matter if they deserve it. You help because that is the right thing to do." Minyu stepped forward, his voice rough but warm. "G1 did not die for revenge. She died because billions of people would have suffered if she did not act. That was enough for her. That is enough for all of us. Commander Sora smiled slightly. We did not answer your call to prove anything. We answered because we could hear you screaming, and we could not look away. Yuna felt tears building in her eyes. She had spent her whole life learning about the Doomworlders, the terrifying monsters from the Death World, the creatures too dangerous to be allowed among civilized species. She had never imagined they could be kind. Then what do you want? She asked quietly. The assembly will give you almost anything. Captain Hana laughed softly. A seat at the table would be nice. Maybe some trade agreements. We have been stuck in one solar system for 2 centuries. There is a lot of galaxy we have never seen. Cultural exchange, Sora added. Your music, your art, your stories. We want to learn about all of you. Tourism, Minyu grinned. Your worlds are really pretty, way less deadly than Earth. Could be nice for vacations. Tiho nodded. We have been alone for a long time, Admiral. We would like some friends. Yuna stared at them. The most dangerous species in the galaxy wanted friendship. They had every right to demand submission, and instead they were asking for tourism. The assembly will not believe this, she whispered. Then we will show them, Tiho replied. Actions speak louder than words. We have already started rebuilding your fleets. Our doctors are treating your wounded. Our engineers are fixing your stations. We will keep helping until you understand who we really are. 1 week later, the Galactic Assembly gathered for the most important meeting in its 3,000-year history. Representatives from every species filled the massive chamber. They whispered nervously among themselves. Armed guards lined the walls, though everyone knew they would be useless against humans. Then the doors opened, and Fleet Commander Tiho walked in. He wore a simple uniform, no medals, no decorations, just the blue and green emblem of Earth on his shoulder. Behind him came Admiral Yuna, walking freely at his side. The chamber fell silent. Tiho walked to the center of the room. Thousands of alien eyes watched him. He felt their fear, their curiosity, their desperate hope that the Doomworlders had not come to destroy them. He began to speak. 200 years ago, you looked at our world and saw death. You looked at us and saw monsters. You were not entirely wrong. Nervous whispers spread through the chamber. Earth is dangerous, Tiho continued. The planet itself tries to kill us every day. Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, predators, diseases. We have survived all of it because we refused to die. That made us hard. That made us strong. That made us terrifying. He paused and looked around the room. But you missed something. The same world that made us killers also made us dreamers. The same fire that forged our weapons forged our art, our music, our love. We are not just Doomworlders. We are humans. His voice grew stronger. You locked us away because you were afraid. And honestly, we understood. We feared ourselves sometimes. We have seen what we are capable of, the good and the bad. We know exactly how dangerous we can be. He smiled slightly. But here is what you never learned. Humans protect what we love. And once we decide to care about something, we never stop. We will cross galaxies for our friends. We will fight gods for our families. We will die for strangers who ask for our help. Tiho looked at Admiral Yuna. Today, that circle grows larger. You are our friends now. You are our family now. And that means we will protect you with everything we have, for as long as the stars burn. He raised his voice so every being in the chamber could hear. So welcome to the human way. It will be confusing sometimes. We are a strange species. We laugh when we should cry. We fight when we should run. We love too much and forgive too easily. But we will stand by you through every darkness. That is our promise. The chamber was completely silent. Then Admiral Yuna began to clap, one pair of hands echoing in the massive room. Others joined her, slowly at first, then faster. The clapping spread like a wave until the entire assembly was applauding. Species that had feared humans for centuries were now cheering for them. Later that day, humanity was officially welcomed into the Galactic Assembly, not as weapons, not as monsters, as allies and friends. Commander Sora found Admiral Yuna on an observation deck that evening. The Lauren Admiral was holding a glass of brown liquid and staring at the stars. "What is that?" Sora asked. "Human whiskey," Yuna replied. "Your soldiers gave it to me. It burns terribly. I love it." Sora laughed and poured herself a glass. "To new friends," she offered. Yuna raised her drink. "To the Doomworlders, may the galaxy never forget what you did for us." They drank together as ships from 100 species moved peacefully through the stars around them. The galaxy had changed forever. The era of fear was over, and somewhere on a blue and green planet called Earth, children looked up at the night sky and dreamed of all the friends waiting among the stars. The Doomworlders had come, and they had brought hope with them.